This session is session 3 of the Loving God's Way introductory series of talks. This session is entitled Defining Love of Self. It was recorded on Tuesday the 21st of May 2019 in Pyrmont, New South Wales, Australia. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Just the fact that you're willing to give up your time to listen to someone talk about growing in love is, it says a lot about every person who comes, really, that you're actually interested in that, which is great. I mean, that's how this world is going to continue to transform in a positive direction, is people actually caring about love and caring about loving themselves and loving other people. And what we're going to be focusing on today is all about loving ourselves. This is a really incredible topic, because as you guys are going to find today, what we think love of self is and what love of self really is are two completely different things. Often what we're really looking for is what's easy. We're looking for an easy out most of the time, and we think that's what love of self is. But it's not. It's not. And becoming more personally responsible, and this has been one of my hardest things. A lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today, I'm still really struggling with. Love of self has probably been my hardest issue lately, in the time you've seen me and known me.
Yeah. Yes.
It's been one of my biggest things, So it's been a real journey for me. So yeah, excuse me if I get a bit emotional about some stuff today. I'll try not to too much. I'll try just to say, keep working through, because I can do that in my own time, but if I get a bit triggered. Well, I guess let's begin. So would you mind just shutting the bathroom door just because the sound? Cool. Okay, so this is Stanley's place, by the way, so please be respectful of the environment. Don't destroy anything. Please, if you have a question, just put your hand up, and don't be afraid, just ask. If you want to talk about something, just go for it, alright? And if it's not the right moment to answer, I'll just come back to you, so you can chill with that. Other than that, if you get emotional, you can be emotional. Don't hold on to it or be like, oh, I can't. If you want to cry a bit or something like that, or there's that board right there, and you can literally just go out there and just sit on. I've cried many a time out there. Once when I was able to get the door open.
The door opens easily now.
Yeah, it's a lot easier now, so you can actually get out. For those of you guys who don't also know, some of the material that I'll be presenting today, originally it was presented to me by a guy called AJ Miller, who claims to be Jesus. I've known him for 8 years, and I believe his claim. And also his partner Mary Luck, who claims to be Mary Magdelene. So those of you guys who find that confronting, I'm sorry that I can't change it, but it is what it is. Welcome. Alright, well I guess what I'm going to do, same thing as last week, we're going to just go through, and we're going to have a little bit of a talk, just do a bit of a recap, and we'll go from there, okay? Cool, alright. So, we'll talk about the soul, we'll talk about the mountain way and the balloon way, and then we'll talk a little bit about the grand delusion that we covered before, okay? Just to see are things starting to connect for you guys a little bit. Alright, so what's the soul? Anyone? Naji, what's the soul?
It's when it's just spirit self. I know it's not the physical body, but it's the from the spiritual world, it's the I don't know what I said,
Riley.
It's you.
It's you.
Here you are.
Yeah. So the soul is you. Yeah. And your soul is an emotional creature in nature. So the more that you actually become sensitized to and experience and express yourself in a sincerely, genuine emotional way, the more yourself you are becoming. Have you found that? Okay. The more emotional that you've become over time.
I'm still pretty shut down about my emotions. In a circumstance, I'm fine, but me personally, I I have trouble like sensing my emotions and figuring out where they come from and stuff like that still.
It's interesting though, like you say that, but I see so much more of you now compared to like.
Maybe I need some stuff more.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you get a better opinion of yourself. Because I feel like you've become a lot more emotional.
Yeah, I'm a lot more emotional, but I think I have an expectation of where I actually come from, and it doesn't feel like that. So I'm like,
No, yeah. It's just like, oh no, the ugly parts,
yeah,
the not so nice parts, you know, the not so nice feelings that come out in the projections and stuff. But it's like, you know, that's a part of you at the moment. So it's what it is. Yeah, a willingness to really be yourself, but we'll talk about that as well. So yeah, like your feelings, go for it, Anna. Your feelings, your emotions, your dreams, your aspirations, your intentions, your motivation, like what's really motivating you underneath. Different personality traits as well. You right? Anna?
I just want to get my jumper.
Okay, cool.
So I'm like kind of cold, but like not really. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, and sometimes like if you go into fear, you'll find you get pretty cold as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. So basically, what I've been talking about so far is that all of us are souls. That's what a human being is. It's a soul. It's not your body. It's not your spirit body. If you have ever seen like spirits or ghosts before or anything like that, although we have both of those things, you know, it's actually your emotional self. That's you. That's who you really are. And so if you spend like a lot of your effort and time doing everything that you can to not be that, not be yourself, then you're not even really alive much. You know, you're not really living. You're not really engaged in anything that's like real. And like, yes, it's fucking messy. Like, I don't know what comes later. It's still really messy for me all the time. All the time, it's like really messy. But the more that you like get in contact with yourself, you know, you actually start living it like an authentic life that has depth and it has meaning and it has beauty and it has agony and it has just more love. You know, you can have more love anyway. Yeah. All right. So. Then I talked about, we kind of talked a little bit about that in week 1, and then I also talked about something, 2 different ways of growing. Now, one way of growing is basically every way of growing that exists on the earth, more or less. So you've got different spiritualities, you've got philosophies, you've got religions and stuff like that as well. And so you've got a whole bunch of people down here that are like person, right? Little legs as well, right? And all these people, by way of their own effort and using their own faculties to calculate and try and discern truth for themselves, and then practice that truth, practice it until it becomes a way of being for them over time, and gradually transition away from like untruth or error towards something that's true. That's what pretty well almost everyone like on earth, and then even people who've passed into the spirit world, that's what they do. Right? And so you can call that like, you can call it the mountain way or like the natural up path. So basically, through your own effort, you're trying to get to no more pain, the perfect you know, like who you naturally are created to be. And then also like all of the different qualities that you have like fully developed and expressed and stuff like that as well. So, you know, that's a process that takes, you know, for the average person, someone who's really quite passionate about it, probably a few hundred years. Yeah. So, like, not just here, but like after your parts as well. So it takes a while to get into a condition. Yeah. So that's kind of like, and when you were first conceived, that's where you were at, right? You were a perfect natural specimen of soul. There was no injury, no nothing, but you also didn't know anything and you hadn't developed any of your qualities yet. But as far as the brightness of your soul, you started there anyway. And for the average person on earth, they're way down in a very, very dark condition, actually. And you guys are going to find that the more in contact that you get with your emotions, you're going to be like, I'm a dark motherfucker. You know? And like, what we're going to talk about today is how we confront ourselves with the truth about what we really feel, what our motivations really are, without attacking ourselves, you know, and without trying to blame everyone else for it, and actually just really be willing to let ourselves really just be confronted by where we're at. You know, it's not a bad thing. You know, you haven't done anything. Someone did that.
Don't answer me, keep going.
You're not.
Hello. Come up.
Your condition that you're in right now defines like where you're at, right? But it's not who you've been forever, and it's not like your true self. Think of all the stuff that's on you right now that affects you negatively, and all the pain that you go through. That's like mud on you, you know, mud on your soul. And then over time you can wash it off, and then the real you will emerge. You know, so that's what most people on the earth do, right? Who does that? Who engages in
Can I
that?
give an example of that?
Uh,
Like in terms of
Nikki?
Gandhi?
Wait, no, not yet. Not at the moment, because I want to kind of get through this pretty quickly so I can get onto the main stuff of what I want to talk about.
No worries.
Yeah. Right. So, and then the other way, call this God. Now when I say God, what I mean is there is a being that exists that created the entire universe and is also your parent, the parent of your soul. Made your soul, basically. And loves you and wants to have a relationship with you. Now you could be like, oh, you're talking about like one of the Hindu gods or Christian god or Muslim god or something. No. In every single religion, there are many things in that religion that are true about God. You know, and there are many things in religions that miss the mark. Every religion, I feel, missed the mark about who God truly is. You know, and so it's important that we don't try and label God like just don't try and label God at all, I feel. You know, to actually just be, I still don't really know much about God at all. I just have seen consistently certain qualities that have been displayed by God that I now have a real certainty about. God is definitely loving. You know, God is definitely intelligent. God is definitely playful. So I feel. So basically this way of growing. People coming up, are they? Cool.
Yeah.
So this time it can be Thalia because it's purple. And that's her favourite colour. So Thalia is here. Thalia is in her condition, which isn't great. You know, she's not super happy with her life and she's not super happy with herself. But instead of trying to use her own effort to grow and climb up this mountain to get back to, you know, a perfect natural version of herself, what she's doing instead is she's actually longing for a relationship with God. And through the reception of actually receiving love from God, that's the thing that actually uplifts you and brightens your condition, brightens your soul. Now, for those of you guys that heard it now a couple of weeks, it's starting to kind of make a bit of sense. Yeah. So basically, what Thalia is then doing is she's trying to deal with her resistance to doing that, more or less. She's not trying to use her own intellect to work everything out and then try and practice moving in a certain direction, right? She's like, Thalia's like, I have a desire for a relationship with you, you know, and she means like with God, right? And whatever's in the way of that, my desire is to work through those blocks and to release whatever's in between me and you so I can become closer to you and receive more of your feelings and more of your truths and stuff like that in my heart, into my soul. And as I receive that, I'm going to grow in love. So literally, God is like this balloon that lifts you up higher and higher and higher. And there is no limit. So you don't just get to the natural, perfect version of yourself. You can go further. I assume. I can't, like, I don't know. I don't know for certain about that, but yeah, like I do understand a little bit about this way though now, because when you've kind of been practicing it on and off, hopefully more on and off, for a period of time, you start to develop a completely emotional way of engaging and interacting with the world. And the way that you see everything becomes this very soul-orientated experience and expression of yourself. Does that make sense? So you're not working everything out. Like, I don't try and work anything out really now, you know? I just develop a desire, whatever it is, and then act on the desire or avoid it or whatever, but, you know, yeah, I'm not trying to discern truth. I'm trying to long for truth. It's a different thing. You know? Does that make sense? Like, my job isn't to work it out for myself. I already have a source of absolute truth that I know, and I already have a connection just waiting for me to receive, waiting for me to open up and ask for the truth. You know, so I don't have to work the truth out. What I can do if I want is I can just grow a desire to receive that truth and to ask for it. Who feels pretty reliant on working things out for themselves? Not so much you, me. Yeah. Most people do. Most people are heavily self-reliant. Make sense? It's not really... Who gets exhausted by this process? Who gets confused when they think they've worked something out and then they find out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it's not really the truth. And then you're like, well, what is the fucking truth then? Who feels jaded about, is there any truth? A lot of people feel jaded about that, right? Because so often you thought something is true and you put your heart and soul into it, right? And then it turned around and... Who feels that about love a bit? Love's a lie. Love's a load of bullshit. A lot of us feel that. A lot of us feel that. Yeah, and then over time, I think what's going to be really cool about going through this process and what I've experienced going through this process is I've got my faith back in love now. And I lost it. I didn't have it, guys, honestly. I didn't have faith in love. I had a glimmer of hope that I hung on to. But no, I didn't believe that it was a real thing. I didn't believe that I could actually receive like genuine love, that it even existed. Or that if it did, that I would ever be able to have any. I just figured, no, it's not for me. Other people, sure, but not me. You know, I even had like a person like literally like step out of the ethers to come and share that with me. This feeling that I have to just be like, no, you need to look at this now. But anyways, so these are the two ways. And then, although we're kind of talking about it already, what I touched on last week, and we sort of went into quite a bit, is the grand delusion, which is most of us think we know what love is, but we actually don't. And sometimes, even though we do have a sense of what love actually is, to some extent, we really, 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 really don't want to display love to ourselves and others. And we have very deep motivations for why we do not want to be loving. Very. You know? And often what we'll find over time is, wow, I kind of did know what love was a bit more than I wanted to let on, but I'm going to call everything else love because I'm invested in getting something out of this. Yeah. We're very self-deceptive. Human beings are very, very self-deceptive on this planet at the moment, you know. I don't think it'll be that way forever, but... So, we looked at that. Who felt confronted, who was here last week, about what they thought love was, and then, oh, maybe it's not so much that. Yeah. So what I thought I'd do this week, because I kind of, after last week, I was like, oh, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about. I thought, well, I want to give some examples of what love really is. Like, what it looks like. And so we can talk about love of God, which I will talk about. And it's a huge thing, you know, like what that does to you. And then there's also love of yourself. And when I say yourself, I mean your soul. And when I say your soul, for those of you guys who weren't here, let's see how I go.
Getting better. No, they're not.
It's like-
Anything you can.
Actually, yeah.
that one's not great. Now we're
Come
going
on,
to do the
we'll go,
reverse.
we'll go.
Is it ever going to happen? Alright.
Was that
It's
two
not great.
Two kidneys.
It's too catchy. So, when I say love of self, although for most of the day today, I'm going to be talking more about you, just like the you that you're currently aware of. But what I really mean is like your whole soul. So that's you and your soulmate. So when I say soulmate, what do I mean?
So like in God.
Yes,
thought she was gonna
yeah,
say-
yes, is
So
that?
like when God made our souls, you and I are only half of one soul because when we were made, the one soul cut it in half, boom, then another one, boom, the other one's in someone else, that's us, boom, soulmates.
Except for the other one is someone else.
Yes, the other
It's
one's
not in someone
sorry,
else.
is someone else.
Because you're
Is
still
someone
thinking about the soul is inside of me, rather than the soul is me.
else. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So part of like truly loving yourself is actually desiring to and loving your soulmate as well, because they are the other half of who you really are. You know, and that's been a really big journey for me this year. Is like realizing that everything that I felt about myself also lands on my soulmate. Because if they are you, the feelings that you have about yourself, you're going to project onto them as well. Yes, but
Is everyone destined for a soulmate?
yes,
Every single person.
yes. Yes. There is not a single person in existence who doesn't have a soulmate. That doesn't mean they're alive on earth, necessarily. Because there's deaths, miscarriages, abortions, you know, lots of different things that can happen to a person for them to lose their lives, and does. You know, there's like more than 50 million people, like babies a year, who die before they're able to be born. So there's a lot of people who their soulmate doesn't exist on earth. You know, and that could be some people in this room. You know, and you know, I'm partly responsible for that as well. I did IVF, and through the process of IVF, I killed some embryos. Who were people, actually. Yeah. So those people, whoever their soulmates are, if they're alive on earth, they don't have a way to have a physical relationship on earth with their soulmate, you know? Like, for those people, as a result of my choices. And it's the same if you're a woman and you've had an abortion as well. You actually take away the opportunity for that soul to have an experience on earth, and also their soulmate as well. Will probably be wondering quite a lot, like, why can't I find the other part of me? It's pretty serious. Yeah. I was about to be on to brighter topics, but I thought, no, it's still truth, you know, it's still the truth. So, right, now we're going to talk about love of self. Just let me have a little look here. Alright. Yeah. Yes?
Before you start, can you make sure you stay on the side? Just because I like to watch videos and sometimes you're in front of it and
Thank you. Thanks, appreciate
I was
that.
going to say it earlier, but I was like, oh,
Yeah,
don't
what I
wait.
might do is I might just push it across here a little bit.
Blocking.
Cool. Alright, so just a couple of points. Yeah, so displaying love to yourself is not an intellectual process. Who tries to be better to themselves sometimes?
All the time.
And then who goes backwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, loving yourself is an emotional experience. It comes from your heart. You begin to have feelings grow over time, right? And the more love that you have for yourself, the things that you used to be able to tolerate, you won't be able to tolerate anymore. And eventually, like, putting up with them will be so painful that you'll choose to work through whatever issue that is. You'll choose to feel through it so you can love yourself more. And that's like a process that we'll talk about more and more. I kind of covered a little bit about working through the different emotional layers that we build to hide our pain and to like conceal our pain. Yeah. So part of loving yourself is to expose all of those things and then release whatever pain that you're in, so you can be open to love and you can be open to truth. So what I'm going to really focus on today is, what is a person who genuinely loves themselves? What do they look like? What do they, what do they do? How do they feel about themselves? Like, so then you can look at your own life and be like, and compare it and be like, well, do I love myself compared to this description of what a loving person, someone who really loves themselves, is actually like? Alright, so we'll begin that now. Oh, cool. Yes. Couple of things. Receiving God's love, like when you receive love from God, it sensitizes you to anything that's out of harmony with it. So the more love that you're starting, you get that right, Hilton? Yeah. The more love that you receive from God, actually, things that you never even used to notice, never appeared on your radar of like, is this right or is this wrong, is this okay or is it not, will suddenly start to light up and you'll be like, oh, this is wrong now, because the love inside of you will be in confrontation and in conflict with it. So more than anything else, the fastest way to grow in love for yourself and to discover everything about yourself that isn't loving you is to receive love from God. That's like the big point out of everything that I'm going to say today. Longing to receive love from God is the thing that will help you love yourself the deepest, the fastest. So yeah, if you develop, you aspire to have that as your goal, just to receive love from God, it's going to make a big difference. Number 2, loving yourself is all about obeying laws. Actually, all laws, all these laws and rules and things. Who likes rules? Yeah. Who enjoys rules? Why?
They define the parameters in which you can be effective, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Very good. How about you, Jose? Why do you like rules?
I don't have to think what to do with the rules say.
He's in the corporate.
Who likes rules for that reason sometimes? You don't even have to think, you're just like, yeah, don't question, just whatever. Yeah, you really do. That's one of your biggest issues, Nikki.
It's my biggest issue.
Yeah.
Just do what I'm told.
Yeah, just do what I'm told, right? Yeah. Who likes to rebel against rules?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I realise.
You're not certain rules, hey? Huh? Certain rules, Alex, you like to rebel against, and then other ones you're right in. You're gonna be a good boy.
It just depends, I guess. I don't know. I think I've always considered myself someone who like stays in line though.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, I agree.
On like a daily basis.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, who felt that rules were unfairly applied to them in their childhood? Who felt, you definitely. Who felt that rules were inconsistently applied to them in childhood? Who had the consequences or punishment for rules like inconsistently applied to them during their childhoods? Yeah. So when it comes to law and like following law and obeying law, can you see why like most people are going to be pretty fucking skeptical of it? Not just skeptical, terrified. Who is terrified of their parents' laws at a certain age, a certain point in their childhood?
Still them.
Yeah.
Yeah. How scary is that to be terrified? So, someone like going to stand up in front of you now and be like, you want to love yourself, you're going to obey some laws now. That's scary. You're like, shit! Our freedom's gone! Fuck! Right? But I don't get no freedom now. I get to do what I want. Shit. Well, actually, like one of God, one of God's laws is you're allowed to do whatever you want. Actually, it's the law of free will. You're allowed to do whatever you want. You know what? I was going to talk about humility first, but I think I'm going to start with the law of free will. Let's talk about that. Who feels like they're allowed to do whatever they want?
Like you can or you're allowed. Is that the same thing or different? Like you can do what you want. Or you're
Who
allowed?
feels total freedom in doing whatever they want? To some extent of that?
To some extent, definitely.
Yep. Who regularly does whatever they want? Like no matter what it is, you have a desire to do something, you do it.
What do you mean? Like,
No.
it's too-
Who feels that they're allowed to do anything that they want?
Oh, I think
It depends what you want, doesn't it?
if I'm
I
allowed.
can achieve anything, or I'm allowed to.
No, you're allowed to do it.
I think we all get a sense of I should be doing this, right?
There's always
Yeah.
consequences.
Do you know what? You know, like honestly, guys, according to God, as far as God's concerned, I'm allowed to like go down, buy a gun, come back up, and shoot all of you.
How? How?
I'm allowed to do that.
He's given you the free will to do that, but are you
That's
allowed?
right? Yes, you are allowed to do it. That's the law of free will. You are allowed to do whatever you want. Because if you truly weren't, like God's laws are absolute, and the effect of them is instantaneous, like gravity, right? Gravity's effect is consistent and it's instantaneous. God's laws that that govern the human soul are exactly the same. If you truly weren't allowed to do whatever you wanted, what would happen every time you tried to do it? God would be like, no, you do it! And stop you. Like God would literally stop you from doing what he wanted. If that was the law, there would be some extreme force come along and impact you and stop you from doing what you want. Does that make sense? Does God stop Jeffrey Dahmer from killing a bunch of people? Does God stop wars from happening? So we have this thing which is our free will, right? And it's a gift that we've been given by God. And we're allowed to do whatever we want with it. And we are the only creature in the universe that has a free will. Animals don't have a free will, they have instinct. That's it. We don't have just instinct. We're a soul that has free will. And we can do whatever we want with it. So someone who loves themselves feels they can do whatever they want. They're allowed to do whatever they want. So how far away? I'm getting closer to it. But I'm still at quite a distance. You know? How have you found it this week? When you wanted to be truthful, how have you found that experience be? I might get you to talk up a little bit just because of the mic.
What do you mean?
Well, you decided this week that you wanted to tell the truth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were allowed to do it?
Yeah.
How was that? Good. Before you challenged that, did you feel before that you were allowed to just say the truth whenever you wanted?
No.
Yeah, no. Cool. So it's a good example of actually things that we believe that we're not allowed to do. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You can do whatever you want. Everyone's like, isn't there a caveat? Yeah, but what? There's no but.
No, but is this sorry?
So what happens? What happens when I drop this? So I might go.
The force. The law of gravity.
There's an effect,
Yes.
right? There's a consequence that's clear.
Yes, and yes.
Right. So you are allowed to do whatever you want. And every choice that you make has a consequence. So God's not gonna ever impede to prevent you from engaging your will in any direction. But what God is going to give you is an education in love. And God is going to give you feedback about whether the thing that you have a desire for and the thing that you've just done is loving or not. Now, I guarantee you, if you feel like you can do whatever you want, you will grow so much faster. Because you won't be afraid of, and you won't feel like you're not allowed to experiment with your will. Being like, oh, I want to go talk to that person. Usually be like terrified, be like, no, I'm going to talk to them more. You know, you could be, oh, I'm angry now, I want to yell and abuse this person. No, I'm allowed to yell and abuse them. God feels that you're allowed to yell and abuse them if you want to. And there is a consequence. So, if I say it's not loving, every consequence of the way that we use our will, by the way, is a loving consequence that God applies onto our soul and that turns up in our life. Does that make sense? Right. So when the way you use your will is in harmony with love, and it's truthful, like genuine, like sincerely truthful, not your version of truth, but the absolute truth, the consequence of you, however you use your will always be pleasurable. And I don't mean addictively, like, he's gonna get out of this. Right? No, I'm not talking about that. Who likes that kind of pleasure sometimes?
Come on, man.
This man right here knows all about it. So do I. I know all about it, right? Yeah. It's easy to point at you because, you know, substance addiction is very, very, you know, it's straight in your face, you can see it, you know. But people get like that with emotional addictions all the time. It's just more under the carpet, you know, which is where we want it, under the rug. Right, now, every time that we use our will out of harmony with love, there is a painful effect that's applied onto our soul. Pain is created in our soul as a result of us breaking the law of love and like a bunch of different laws, but we'll go through that, right? So, who feels that they've experienced this? That they've used their will in an unloving direction and they've felt pain as a result? How do you feel when you lie? How do you feel when you lie? Guilty? Yeah. Who feels bad as soon as they lie? Not so much you, Alana. You're fine with it.
No, it depends on the person.
Yeah. Alright, good. So, yeah, it's instantaneous actually.
The noble lie?
There is none.
There is none.
And we'll talk about that when we come to truth afterwards. Yeah, there is no such thing as a noble lie. There's just a lie. And it's actually unloving. Now, if someone wants to use the truth that you can give them for a very unloving purpose, then you can still be in truth and not speak. That is noble. You know?
Just you say that again, sorry.
So you can choose to not give truth to a person, you know, because what they want to do with that information is something very unloving. If their motivation for asking you is evil, basically, you can address their motivation rather than answer the question, which is the truly loving thing to do in that moment. And you guys will see that when you ask me questions and then I address your motivation. Who's experienced that with me before?
Yeah, heaps actually.
Yeah, I experienced it with Thalia as well. There's been a bunch of times and she's like, that's not really what's going on, Maddie. And I'm like, okay. And sometimes I'll argue that it is and then I'm wrong usually. Pretty much every time we addressed it, I think. Yeah. So, but what God doesn't want us to do is fear this. God does not want us to be afraid of painful consequences. What God wants us to do is use our will. Who learned early in their life that it's not a good idea to make mistakes? I was 3 years old, and I had this little push trolley thing, right? Like this little woolen push trolley, and I had like all these like wooden blocks that I used to build stuff with. And there's this one day I was trying, like out the front of our shed, I was trying to load it up. You know, like loading it up. I'd get it to like, I got them all there and it balanced precariously. And then I'd start to push it, and then one would fall off. And then like I started to push it, and then another one would fall off, right? Now, under normal circumstances, a kid's just going to chuck a tantrum until they find some kind of a solution. And they just get upset and get angry and frustrated and stuff like that. But what happened with me is I got laughed at. And like, for making mistakes, you know? And actually treated like I was inferior. So often what's happened in our lives is that when we made mistakes, we were treated like we were inferior. Like an inferior creature, really, an inferior person. And so we start to associate, oh, if I make a mistake, like, I'm bad, it's bad, I should never make mistakes. Who's afraid of making mistakes even now still? Yeah. Do you think God is afraid of you making a mistake? If you love yourself, you're not afraid of making mistakes. In fact, you can't wait to make mistakes. Why?
It's great.
Yeah, you're going to learn. This feedback mechanism is a way of educating us. How cool is that? Like God didn't design painful consequences for us as a way of punishing us. Because the punishment doesn't go on eternally. And it's not even a punishment. The painful consequence doesn't last forever. It lasts until we learn the lesson in love. Now, doesn't that seem logical? Who's being punished for doing something, for using their will in a certain direction beyond where they learn whatever lesson there was to learn? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So let's say Thalia is my daughter, right? And Thalia, I'll use Nicoletta as a better example. So Nikki one time told a lie, right? Let's say that Nicoletta told a lie, and she got in trouble for telling that lie, and she got like humiliated for telling that lie, and put right down for telling that lie, okay? And then she was like, "You don't ever lie again. You don't ever lie again," right? That's obviously not how God goes about it. It's how human parents go about it. And then afterwards, every single time when Nicoletta looks like she's about to go off and do something with her will that she wants to do, her parents like, "You remember that time. You don't get to have that because you're a liar." Does that make sense? So for human parents, so often it's not about the child learning a lesson in love. It's you get back in line, and I will use all this cannon fodder that I've got now to control and dominate you for the rest of your existence. Who's experienced that? A lot of us. That's terrible. It's really sad to be treated like that. Then have a look at that. Oh, wow. Well, the free will was actually something that I was going to talk about next week, but apparently we're going to talk about it today, so sorry for sort of changing that a little bit. All right. So, as far as free will goes, who lets people make them do things?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's just something. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. I still do to some extent.
You do it
I
all
still
the
do to some
time.
extent as well. Yeah, all the time, right? It's like, go on. This is something that's changed for me quite significantly over the last couple of months because I got really confronted. I was talking to AJ and he's like, you just want to meet everyone's addictions all the time. And I was like,
You just want to. Sorry, what did you say?
he said, I just want to meet people's addictions all the time.
What does that mean? Meeting people's addiction?
You're a good boy. I love you.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, in line with
Let's go
what.
hang out, boys.
Yeah.
Boys.
In line with what they want you to do.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many. Just pick one.
What do you mean? Oh, okay.
So
Sorry.
there's so many addictions, right?
Yeah.
So what that is an indication of is I'm willing to subvert my will
Right.
and do what someone else like wants me to do.
Correct.
So who often does something that someone else wants them to do but they don't really want to do it?
Yeah.
If you love yourself, you would never do that. You will never, ever, ever do something someone else wants you to do when you don't want to do it. Even if the thing that they're suggesting is a loving thing. You wouldn't do it if you didn't want to do it.
For no reason, you just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, you just didn't. There's always a reason, but you just decided you didn't want to do it. God doesn't want you to go do something because someone says it's a good thing or because he says it's a good thing either. God's like, no, you're allowed to do whatever you want. Make sense?
A little bit.
So, that's something that you can experiment with. I'm no longer going to let other people dominate my will and control me. Actually, a person who loves themselves is completely uncontrollable. Completely uncontrollable. I'm starting to feel like that a bit more. Yeah, because I feel often when people try and control me, and I'm like, sometimes I might be a bit seduced, other times I'm just like, or I might be a bit afraid, but just more and more, I'm like, no, finding my voice, allowing myself to actually take action the way that I desire to take action. So you guys can experiment with that and just start to be start to become sensitive to every single time you subvert your will. Who tries to get other people to do what they want them to do?
Yes, all the time.
All the time?
I'm a salesman.
Yeah, that's what you do your job, right? You get people to do things they don't want to do.
Well, I mean, if they want to do it, they can do it. But if not, then I might tell them otherwise they should, but yeah.
Well, it's what says justification.
So, who understands a sense of when you actually apply your will onto another person to pressure them into something? We do it all the time in indoors and activities, right?
Oh, yeah. Fuck, I thought you meant like, yeah.
That's
Yeah, just in general, like you're saying, if you do it.
yeah.
Doesn't matter where you are.
Now, if you love yourself, you actually feel, no, I'm allowed to. I don't have to make you do what I want. I'm allowed to do what I want.
Yeah.
And the other side of it's to do with love others, but we'll talk about that next week.
So that again, sorry, I don't have to make.
Yeah, I don't have to make you do what I want. I'm allowed to do what I want.
But what if what you want to do
Yeah.
is to make them do that thing?
You can do that.
Okay.
But if you love yourself,
Yeah.
if you love yourself, you over time you'll become sensitive to what's loving and what's not.
Right.
But it's a good question. We'll get to that.
Right.
If you love others, you won't try and impinge on their will, but you will know that you're allowed to.
Yeah, right.
So I'll describe that like, yes, we're allowed to do whatever we want, but as we grow in love more, what we innately, automatically, naturally choose is we come more and more into harmony with what is truly loving. Yeah. But before we get to that, we've got to be really clear that we are truly allowed to do whatever we want. So I recommend starting to challenge that. Be uncontrollable. Who's afraid of what's going to happen if they're uncontrollable? Who just feels like if I get into line, everything's fine?
Yeah.
Where'd you learn that?
Mummy, daddy.
Mummy, daddy, most of the time, right? Yeah. And if you guys didn't grow up with mum and dad, you grew up with grandparents or whatever, it's like, it's your environment that you're in. Who got taught that by school?
Yeah.
Get into line, right? Totally unloving. When they used the threat of punishment to control your will. Who felt horrible when their will was being controlled like that? It's a terrible feeling, actually. So in order to get your will back, because your will's like under here, like, free will! And then we're like, all this terrible pain about how our will's been subverted and destroyed and we're not controlled, and now I'm also terrified about, I can't make any choices for myself and I can't just do whatever I want, right? There's a whole bunch of emotion that we all have inside of us. And so in order to get to the place where I am allowed to do anything I desire, no matter what, my will is, I want to do it, I am allowed to do it. And you can take the action, actually. You really don't like that, do you, James? Yeah. Now, part of the reason why is because you were rewarded when you were in line with things.
Yeah.
Who got rewarded?
Yeah.
Who got rewarded? Yeah.
The gold star, bro.
Yeah. But the issue with you got rewarded as well, Tigran?
Oh yeah.
The issue, now this is the difference between human parents and God as a parent, okay?
Can I say something, Mate, or just after?
Go ahead.
So you're saying like the right way, which I heard many times, is to say you can do it if you want, but there's a consequence. But I'm not going to punish you because you did that. You're allowed to do it, but if it's a wrong thing, there's a consequence for your action.
Yeah,
as long as you know that beforehand.
Well, even if you don't know it beforehand, you'll find out. But the thing is, we've got to understand that not to be afraid of the consequence.
Yeah. So let them.
We are afraid of our parents' consequences, and we are afraid of the consequences that the world's going to give us, because a lot of the time it's fucking violent, right? But we don't, and so we what we do, everything that we've learned from our lives, we put that onto God, and we're like, oh yeah, you'll definitely be violent with me at all. I have never once ever in my entire existence, my entire relationship that I've had with God over the last 8 years or so, ever received a violent feeling from God in any way, shape or form. God is not a violent being. God made rainbows, man. Like, he's not out to get us. You know, he's really not out to get us. Right, now. What's the opposite of freedom?
Incarceration.
Incarceration. It's close.
Restriction.
Yeah, restriction, isn't it?
Slavery. Slavery, perfect. Right. So,
Is that what it means? Was that just jail?
now, eventually, so you use your will in a way that is unloving. This is an educative process that God has created for us, right? Where we make a choice that's unloving, there's a painful consequence until we learn the lesson of love. And the more we keep making that same choice, or we develop an aspiration or a desire inside of us, like a not so loving motivation, an unloving motivation inside of us, the pain increases. And it increases, and it increases. So don't worry if you don't learn it the first time. Eventually, God's going to get you. Not in a bad way. God's going to get the issue. right? He's not after you, he's after the issue. Okay? Now, and every time you do something that's, that you make a choice that is truly in harmony with love and comes from a loving motivation inside of you, there's a pleasurable kickback for that. There's a reward for it. That is different from the rewards that your family, your human environment has given you. This is what I want to explain. The overall goal that God has, right, in this process of like pleasurable consequence and painful consequence is your eventual absolute freedom. God wants you to be free, to know absolute freedom. How cool is that? And that is part of when you really love yourself, you will be completely free. I mean it like completely free. And never afraid either. You will not be afraid. When you truly love yourself, you will not live in fear. And you will know how to use your will. You will know exactly how to engage your will in a way that gives you complete freedom. But you've been educated about love. And so you're going to get a lot more of these and a lot less of these over time. So this whole process that God engages with us is really actually positive, nurturing, loving, wonderful, Now we've got the earthly parents, the earthly situation. What they do is when you're naughty, when you're bad, when you've done something wrong, they punish you so you feel inferior. They projected you, you're bad. God never does that. You're so bad, you bad boy. Like God, not interested in doing that. But our human parents often are. And it can be very subtle. It can just be a slight bit of physical distance when you do something they don't like. And if you're sensitive to that, and they formed a bond through closeness, physicality-wise, they'll just distance themselves from you when you do something, and they'll be like, no, you go over there, darling. Being like, no, you don't deserve that right now because you're bad. So often what happens in our lives is when one of these comes from God, we think, oh, God's trying to tell us that we're a piece of shit. It's not the case. What our earthly environment most of the time is trying to do is to punish us and make us feel inferior, so we feel so bad, so we start to get in line. And it's the same with the rewards. Who liked getting rewarded for things when they were younger? Who likes getting rewarded for things now? Yeah. Right. Often the reason why we like getting rewarded is because it made us feel really good about ourselves. It made us feel like we're good now, we're a good person, because mummy says that I'm good, and here, darling, come here and I'll give you this and I'll give you that or whatever, And so we're like, oh, I subvert my will and I do what they want, and then I get a reward that makes me feel like I'm superior. And I'm like, yeah, Nicoletta, you know about this more than anyone in the room.
I'm thinking of so many right now as you say it to me. Like, I didn't even think of my mum at all until now.
Yeah. It's a huge deal. You've experienced this from distance even.
Is it possible to feel the opposite? That like they want something from you.
Yep.
But it's also like no matter how hard you work, you still feel that inferior.
Yeah, that's what they try and set up. That's the whole point. To say yes, Tony.
Yeah. So you're saying right now you're what's that word, like how you think about yourself?
Self-esteem.
No, your self-worth relies in the hands of others.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That you become a
What you think of
slave.
yourself
You become a slave to other people's opinion of you. And what becomes our entire life, and anyone who loves themselves no longer does this. What we do, we go, fuck this one over here. Right? There's no way that Who tries to avoid punishment at almost any cost? No, I don't anymore. No. With some people I do. Some people I'm terrified of. Like I'm still terrified to confront Bill.
I was going to say,
I will.
but it's like,
Right, you know, switch straight away. Yeah. So there's still something in that relationship that I'm avoiding.
He's a nice man.
Hey?
He's a nice man.
At times he is a very nice man, yeah. So what we do is we go, and this is what our environment trains us to do, is to avoid this and go for this. But the only way that we can do this is if we suppress our will and we intellectually manufacture a different version of ourselves and present that to the world. That's what the facade is. So when you have a facade, what you're trying to do is you're trying to avoid feeling like you're inferior to other people. You're avoiding punishment from your environment. Yeah. How terrible is that? It sucks. Now, what happens as well though is we start to hear about some of God's rules and we apply the same thing and God's like, no. I am not telling you you're inferior. You've got heart disease. You've got heart disease going on in your life. The heart disease isn't me telling. This is from God, right? God's not saying to you, oh, you've got heart disease, therefore you're bad. No. God's like, you've got heart disease, you're using your will in an unloving direction, my beautiful child. And the heart disease is here to educate you. This is one of the major reasons why we're so terrified of pain, Mathew. You know? Because we think pain is a punishment. Because that's what we were taught. Avoid pain. Don't play that. A person who loves themselves never attempts to avoid pain. So if you don't attempt to avoid pain, what would you do? What do you feel there?
Feel your emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone who loves themselves actually
Takes time.
feels their pain, is willing to embrace their pain, doesn't live in fear of being in pain anymore. I'm still in fear of pain most of my life, all the time. It's a massive indicator of how much I love myself at this point, which isn't much more than before, but I'm still so locked in terror. And this was the process that taught me to do that. Make sense? It's a massive deal. Free will is a massive deal. Yeah, so we have to go through this before we get to the point that we actually do feel I'm allowed to do anything I want, without living in fear of the consequence. And to be to the point where I'm allowed to do anything that I want, and when I make a mistake in love and a mistake in truth, God's just going to show me that I am making a mistake, and then I'm going to learn something awesome. So whether I do it in an unloving direction or I do it in a loving direction, there's nothing to fear. And if I start in a place where I know nothing about truth yet, and I know nothing about love, and even if I make terrible mistakes, even if I end up killing someone, you know, the pain that you'll get from that, trust me, it's huge. Huge. But it's for an educated purpose. You know, God wants you to learn. And when you learn, the consequence for it is removed from you. There's no purpose to punish a person once they learn the lesson. So we become fearless in using our will, and we become fearless that it doesn't matter if we make a mistake. It matters in a good way if we make a mistake, because yes, I'm going to learn something new. And if you think about little children, how afraid are like the little ones, particularly like when they're really small, before they've been kind of brought into line? You think about the terrible twos. What's the terrible twos? The terrible twos is the slow destruction, the gradual destruction of a human being's will. And the suppression and control of a child's will. That's what the terrible twos is about. Because they're just starting to get a sense of their will. Guess what? They do. They feel, a little child feels like I'm allowed to do whatever I want. You know? And then we jump on that child. And we do all this stuff to them. And then, you know, by the time they get to 3 and 4, they're a lovely little child now. Who was a very good boy or a very good girl when they were growing up? Uh-oh. Yeah. This worked. This worked. There's a difference between being a good girl and being someone who loves. Huge difference between the two. Because a little girl who loves will be like, I don't care if you kill me, mommy or daddy, I'm not changing my view on this. Yeah, different.
So if you were teaching a child,
yeah,
and they were going to do the wrong thing, would you let God give them a consequence, or would you
God will give them the
educate
consequence.
them about what's going to happen if they do it, and just let them do it?
Yeah, you'd educate them. Very good. You'd educate them about what may be the consequence of their choice. But you'd allow them to use their will. I'm waiting for Chandra to think of something to ask a question about that. So, can anyone think of some examples where they feel a bit challenged about that? You let your child do whatever they want. What?
I feel challenged as I'm trained to be a teacher, and behaviour control in particular.
Yeah, that's what this is.
Yeah.
God's not interested in behaviour control.
Yeah.
God's interested in education.
I know.
So what's actually happening right now is the people who made these rules are controlling you.
Yeah.
And they're controlling you and you don't like it. And they're making you control others as well. And you feel like if I abandon this practice, terrible things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So what happens a lot of the time in your growth towards becoming a more loving person is God's like, yes, this is it. Yes, you don't let those people control you in your job anymore.
Yeah.
And immediately, as you feel your fear and you decide, no, I'm going to know that my free will, I have it, and I don't have to do what you want me to do. And if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. Right? Straight away, God's like, bing, 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 bing. You're getting all these rewards into your soul. At the very moment that, because you're making a loving choice now. At the very moment that the world is punishing you. How many times have you found that failure, that your environment has punished you while you're actually receiving reward from God?
I'm just trying to think of an example that that's happened.
I've experienced this thousands of times. Just recently, when you addressed your mum. Your mum
Oh yeah.
gave you negative consequence, basically.
Yeah.
You know, even though you were using your will in a more loving way. So, guess what? The world doesn't love very much at all. So if you want to start loving yourself, you are going to be in constant conflict with the values of this planet. Right? You may be attacked, you may be punished, you may be ridiculed. People may attempt to make an example out of you. You may be murdered. You know, there's been a lot of really loving people in history who got murdered. Part of the reason why they did it is because they felt that I'm allowed to do what I want. and I'm allowed to do things that are in a loving direction. And the world went, no, you're not, get back in line. That's why my mum, like, you are uncontrollable in the office.
Yeah.
How cool is that, even just as like a distant idea? To be like, wow, one day I can be completely uncontrollable. And the sooner you work through your resistance to it, the sooner you'll live it.
Just think about now, well, it's like my belief, it's like Jesus as well, like, you know, the world wanted him to get in line, so they killed him.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, well, no, yeah. In my understanding of Jesus' life in the first century, that is exactly what happened. He refused to get into line. He refused to ever do anything that was unloving, and as a result, he ended up being murdered. You know, you upset the status quo. It's the same thing as when you're in a family. You upset the status quo. There's going to be a consequence until you get back in line. God never wants you to get back in line. God wants you to awaken to the truth. That's a beautiful process. Does anyone have any questions about free will? Yes.
Okay. I don't know if step 4, and it kind of like is like still in my mind, but I don't know how if I'm gonna be able to like articulate it like well. But like before, when you were saying like there's always a consequence, like you're always gonna feel a consequence for something, like even if you kill somebody, like God will show you like the consequence of that through pain and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's just, I don't know, that's just kind of like, I don't know, you're just like a bystander to, like, I don't know, that just makes me think of God as like a bystander to murder. Like, oh, my kid needs to learn a lesson, so I'll, like, yeah, this person can die, so my kid needs to learn a lesson. I don't know, I just feel like it, like, degrades, like, the person who died's life down to just like, oh, you were just a lesson, like, for my kid. Like, I personally, as a human, if I were ever to be a parent, like, if I knew my kid was going to kill someone, I would be like, no, we're not doing that. I don't care what lesson you need to know. Like, you're not going to kill someone. Like, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop you, you know?
I think maybe when it comes to
no. You might get,
I don't know, it's just like really bothering me.
God vehemently disagrees with you on that subject.
Okay, cool. Can you elaborate?
So, God, it's a good point. So, one of the cool things about God is God doesn't wait until after you've done something. Okay? The conscience has been mentioned a couple of times today, right? So your conscience is a telephone line between you and God.
My conscience.
Your conscience.
Can we define conscience?
Conscience is a mechanism of truth, a communication of truth between God and you.
Okay.
Absolute truth.
Is your conscience to be like, I should have done that, or yeah, that was cool. Is that mechanism and that sort of feedback you get with yourself?
Like sometimes you can get quite confused as to your own feelings and thinking that's your conscience, as Nicoletta knows, as opposed to the actual truth that God's giving you in every single moment. Right? So, here's me. This is Matt. Matt's got a tomahawk.
Yeah.
And here's I don't know, whoever. Some terrified person, right? Yeah. And that's overcloaked by a spirit. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. Right? Let's fucking kill this person because I'm allowed to do it. I can kill whoever I want, right? And God's like, yes, you are allowed to do that. You are. And I'm not going to stop you. Otherwise, I'll explain just one point very briefly. If God would have to pick a point at which, oh no, now I have to intercede and actually stop you.
Yeah.
And then do you know what God turns into when he does that? Our parents. He becomes a dictator. You're no longer a child, you're no longer God's child, you're God's servant. You're God's child up until a point. God doesn't operate like that. Yes?
I'm curious about that. So I was thinking about the Sermon of the Mount in the New Testament.
where God is speaking about, or Jesus is speaking about how we deal with each other, how we love our enemies or not. We're actually also teaching us or educating us how we should interact with other people. It's so for me, that is clear. There are totally no-goes. What you or maybe not no-goes, but maybe things where you like what the Sermon on the Mountain says.
I'd need to know more about exactly what Jesus said on the sermon, but on this mountain when he gave this like talk, right?
Yeah.
When he spoke to his followers.
I mean, the basic message is loving the enemies.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Mm.
But you're allowed to hate them.
Yeah. But he doesn't like it.
Hey?
But he doesn't like it.
Jesus never hated his enemies, but he knew he was allowed to if he wanted.
No. But he wouldn't like it if you hate it. If you hate them, he wouldn't like it.
God.
You're saying Jesus as in God.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I personally believe that Jesus is a God. That Jesus is one of God's children. But so I'll explain this exact like this exact thing. So your conscience is a mechanism that exists inside of your soul, right? There's some mechanism somewhere. I don't know exactly. I can't really explain it. I understand how it works, but in a physical sense. And then there's a connection between you and God, right?
Mm.
Now, it's direct communication of truth. So when Matt's here and he's crazed now and he's got some spirit who's like, yeah, let's kill all these people because I'm so angry or I hate everything. And it's like it's a female spirit now. Yeah. Right? So let's say that's going on. God is constantly sending me messages in that moment via my conscience to be like, this is wrong. Killing a person is wrong. Murder is wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So God doesn't wait until after I've killed the person to attempt to educate me. God tries to educate me the moment that I have the inclination towards killing someone. The very moment.
Yeah.
And trust me, before I got to the point where I was hateful, because to kill someone you have to be hateful, right? Before hate, there's rage. Before rage, there's anger. Before anger, there's like frustration. Before frustration, there's confusion. You know, there's a lot of steps for me to get to the point of hate. And every single step along the way, God is constantly giving me a message of truth about it.
Yeah.
But God doesn't force the message of truth on us because God does not want to turn us into a robot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Go, Peter, go. You're on it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Okay. I would consider that the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit's different.
Be sensitive with the Holy Spirit speaking to you.
The Holy Spirit is the Spirit of truth, but it's not the mechanism of receiving truth from God.
But it's the Holy Spirit not.
So your understanding
what God is want to tell me. So I'm gonna sense it.
Your understanding of like the Holy Spirit and my understanding of it is like what you're describing. I describe probably more as the conscience. The Holy Spirit is another mechanism, and you can feel when you are connected to the Holy Spirit, by which God's love is transferred into your soul.
Would you say that the Holy Spirit is from God?
Yes. Well, I'd say the Holy Spirit is it's a part of God and it's a mechanism of transfer of love. Yeah. If that makes sense at all. But it's also a spirit of truth. So if in that moment I am not in truth, I'm not being my true self, and I'm not longing for truth, and I'm not in truth on a certain issue, if I long to receive love from God, I won't. You must be in truth. So it is a spirit of truth, but it's not the communicator of truth between you and God. Your conscience is. So as far as education goes, does that make sense? So like even like you're in a shop and you're going to steal something, right? Like when you're little. And last week mummy caught you, she's like, bad, like disgusting child. Take that back up, apologize, right? And then like, yeah, obviously that's a bit of exaggeration, not in everyone's case, but definitely in some people's case. You know? But you know, like, who got shamed for doing something like that before?
Exactly that.
I never got caught.
You never got caught?
Nah. Got away with it.
You're quite kind of proud of that. Yeah, right? So we learn to be sneaky so we don't get caught. Because we know what's going to come if we do get caught.
Yeah.
Right? So you learn to even hide the fact that you were doing it. Right? Yeah. Who learned to be real sneaky with their parents? Who is still sneaky as shit with their parents?
2 steps ahead.
Yeah. And we like it. We think it's a good thing to be 2 steps ahead of our parents so they don't know the truth about us. How sad is that?
Very.
How draining.
Yeah. It's draining and exhausting. It's terrible, right? So, the thing is, even right back when we were starting to get afraid, confused, frustrated, annoyed, angry, God was already saying, hey, what you're doing, this motivation, this malicious intention that you're developing over time, my child, that's unloving. You know? And everyone is equally sensitized. It feels the conscience equally, you know? It's an equal gift that's been given to all of God's children. And it's up to you, personally, whether you want to open yourself to it and listen to your conscience and the conscience. Yeah, or not. The other thing about the conscience is, and you'll see it, like, because often children are much more connected to the conscience than we are. You go into a room full of little kids and you say, hey kids, is it okay for, just ask your conscience, is it okay for you to kill someone? And straight away they'll receive an answer from God. They don't know they're getting it from God, but the answer is no, it's not okay to kill someone. It's not okay to kill a person. Okay. Let's do an experiment. Let's say, now I don't want you, hop up, Jose.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So I probably should get someone small. AJ, maybe you hop up.
Cool.
All right. So let's say AJ is your child, right?
Hi AJ.
Right.
How are you?
Now I'm not a very nice guy, and I've got a gun, right? And you are the parent, and I'm about to kill your child. In your personal opinion, who believes it's okay for you to now kill me? Just be honest. Who feels it's okay to kill someone to protect their child?
Oh fuck, yeah, you have, yeah.
Right?
I'm going to try not to.
Yeah, but you can't fight it. You can't fight that, man. Like if you have to fucking head.
Hold on with it.
Yeah, but
no, hold on. Just wait, there's a reason. Okay, now, I just want you guys to use your conscience now and just try and experiment with it. Just ask your conscience, and it's basically asking God, do you feel it's okay to kill a person? Does God feel it's okay to kill a person? Right? In this situation, when you must kill to save your child, ask your conscience, is it okay to kill to save your child? No, it's not. Yeah, that's God's answer on that. Yeah, so you always get a consistent answer. When you use your conscience, you always get a consistent answer. Thanks, AJ. Thanks for being my potential victim.
Yeah. So like, how do we differ from God? Because like God can't stop us using our free will to kill someone.
Yeah.
Because then they become dictator. Does that mean if we were to try and stop a murder,
yep,
we would become dictators of like free will? Like,
yep.
but like, what if it was like,
We can choose to provide some degree of loving restriction onto a person. And you know, you can
Yeah.
educate your child by doing that to some extent. The only reason you do it with your child is, actually I don't know. But particularly with your own child is because the unloving things that they want to go and do, where do you think they got them from you?
yeah, but what
So
if it's
you
like
need to take
someone else,
responsibility.
like someone else, like not even
Just a
our
random person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dictator of free will. Like if I were to stop them from murdering someone.
Yep.
But like, what? Sorry, I just kind of wrote my head off.
Yeah.
But
That's okay,
like-
you don't have to.
Okay.
Yes.
I have heard actually AJ speak about on video
Mm.
that there are loving ways of restricting like other people from harming other people.
Mm.
And he did speak about he spoke about tasers.
About like tasers and stuff like that.
Have you heard that?
Ah, okay. So I might qualify that.
Right.
I might qualify it.
Tasers like
Yeah.
In terms of when you, in terms of like, you interfering, you're not trying to suppress their will,
Mm.
if that makes sense. So you're not trying to suppress a person's will.
Yeah.
However, you can restrict their action if your motivation for doing so comes from a loving place.
Yeah, like I don't want them to kill someone.
Like
No. It depends on why you don't want them to kill someone.
Well, I wouldn't want, like, I'd stop someone from killing someone because, like, you are really gonna regret this later on. Like, you're gonna feel so
That's
bad.
it. That's a loving reason for doing it. But if you were in fear
Mm.
and you're doing it out of a fearful way, like a fearful reason why you are attempting to restrict a person from engaging their will in a very unloving direction at a point in time. Like you don't want to stop them from feeling that they want what they want. Right? Let them feel that.
Let them feel
Yeah.
murderous.
Yeah, let them feel murderous.
But you can harm them if it was out of love. Like still.
No.
Yeah.
Well, no, because a taser doesn't really harm a person.
Yeah, that.
It just restricts them.
No, but I'm saying like if you had to like
Yeah.
start like, do you know what I mean? Like cause some sort of bodily harm, so that like, do you know what I mean? Because I love like, do you know what I mean?
To restrain them.
Like, oh, I love you, so I'm doing this to wake you up, like wake you up in love. But it's better than preventing. Like I'm preventing you from what you were gonna do. So I stabbed you to make you realize
I
like.
don't think it would be
No, no.
Yeah, it's defense. It's just
No.
instinct.
Yeah,
you
what-
see someone
Yeah,
remembering
yeah.
as a child,
Yeah,
you kill them.
yeah. No. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You can harm them.
Yeah. But
Isn't that like-
from God's perspective, you are a murderer now.
I know that's like your
That's
opinion
just
of
what
God,
the-
though. I think as a human being, I think it's completely natural. It's to think
It's
that
common.
it's
But
common, and I
yeah.
think it is natural. I think
It's
a
not
few of
natural.
us all said when we're kids, maybe you say no, but
That's
I think
because you
that's to protect-
desensitize yourself.
yeah,
from
but I
your
think
conscience.
even back to caveman days or even animal instinct, it's like you protect your family, protect your tribe. Even people in here, if someone tried to kill AJ or Chandra or Musa, I'd be like, I'm gonna fucking
Yeah.
protect them
Fucking
because
hell.
it's like a tribal thing, you know.
We're doing it out of
If
love.
it's
Yeah.
wrong or right,
Yeah.
it's wrong. I think it is wrong to murder anyone.
No,
But
you don't.
What I think he's saying, Matt, is you can harm someone to stop them, but not.
no, I
intentionally.
don't think it's right to do so.
Yeah.
Deep down I do, but like my monkey mind is like, yeah, I'll fucking
There is
murder
no
anyone.
monkey mind, bro. There's just you.
I think there is different. There's a higher self and a lower self.
There's only you.
I think
There
your
is-
higher self is your subconscious, right?
Different
be wrong.
thing.
Taylor,
There's,
did you want to?
instincts and then-
Oh, like I was just gonna give
Thanks for this conversation, by the way, guys. I am still learning about this stuff myself.
like I remember the example that AJ gave actually
Yes.
of say he was asked if someone's right there and they're about to commit suicide,
Yes.
would you stop them?
Mm.
And he's like, well, like I've got however long to give them all the reasons as to why they should do it, but will I stop them? No, in the end it's their free will and their choice to do it, but I will do as much as I can to share with them why it's important not to, you know what I mean? Like,
So eventually, yeah, I can understand that because how would I say it's the temporary restriction of a person's will in order to give them information and give them an opportunity to feel and to make a choice that's in a loving direction. And still after everything, if they still absolutely are hell-bent on this and there's no changing them.
Even if it means harming that person to wake them up, right? Like,
well, no, you wouldn't cause any kind of permanent harm to a person for a purpose of waking them up. It's not really your purpose if you use harm.
but what if stopping them results in harm? I get what you're saying.
Yeah, if stopping them results in harm, you know.
No, you don't intentionally.
You can't harm a person out of love.
Yeah, correct.
I feel that very strongly actually. You can't harm a person out of love. Yes?
So Matt,
Yeah.
what would you do if someone had that thought going to your head right now? Like, what would you try and stop them, or would you?
I would confront them about their motivation.
Or what if they still wanted to kill you anyway?
That doesn't kill me.
Okay. Cool.
No.
I would let that person kill me.
You wouldn't do anything. Like you wouldn't like. I mean, beside.
Try and fight them?
Yeah, but beside like asking the motivation, that's very kind. But you know.
Let me explain something about the law of attraction.
Yes. We're waiting all life this man.
Now, the law of attraction comes to show you truth about yourself, right? So, if you already feel, let me just get very clear with this, okay? If you already feel that you are not deserving of any kind of attack of any sort, if you feel that you're actually very if you let's say you have this thing, I deserve attack, I deserve to be abused, I deserve, the likelihood of you attracting someone who may desire to kill you, for instance, is higher than if you actually have none of that at all. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of you actually attracting that situation is far reduced.
Yeah.
Because there is no lesson to learn for you.
Yeah.
Now someone can still use their will out of harmony with love against you, but the likelihood is they're going to be drawn to someone else to do that too.
Yeah. And if let's say they're still drawn to you, could that be what what you were saying last week about how with rapists in certain houses, not necessarily because the women inside them attract that or whatever, but maybe
So they do attract it, they don't deserve it.
yeah, they attract it because of their parent.
Different emotional injuries. What I'm saying is if you work through those emotional injuries, the likelihood of you attracting that is super low.
Yeah, but
does that make sense?
Yeah, but if you haven't worked through them, but you're still you still don't think I deserve to be attacked and stuff, but you still haven't worked through your emotions.
You feel that you do deserve to be attacked. So you attract someone now who wants to shoot you, who wants to kill you, who wants to stab you, or whatever. The reason you personally have attracted it for almost every person in history to some extent is because you have emotional openness to that. So you can allow this situation, for instance, to trigger you emotionally.
Yeah.
So you can, instead of putting on a brave face or instead of doing whatever, or instead of trying to get angry or violent in return, if you become humble, and that's what we'll go on to next. We're going to talk about humility for the second subject for tonight. Okay? If you allow yourself to be truly humble in that moment, the likelihood of that person continuing and following through with that action is far reduced.
Okay.
So if you allow yourself to shake in terror, if you allow yourself to cry about that, you allow whatever pain is inside of you to be triggered. You feel it. Because if you don't have those emotional injuries, like Jesus didn't have those emotional injuries, right? He wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say
really appreciate
in a way, like, I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, because, like, we all know that, intellectually, that certain things are wrong and bad, but because of the damage and the level of terror and fear inside of us, when we're confronted with certain situations, because it's not yet in our heart, like, that truth, we will act in harmony with the damage that's inside of us. So some of us might respond in anger. I do that all the time. Some of us might respond in terror or fear and take an action that is just completely against what we, intellectually believe. But because the injury is driving us
in that moment.
to not
We're
be
out of
humble
control.
to
Yeah.
what's underneath all of that, some of us might, when faced in a situation, we might do something that we, completely, will regret.
Our true value is revealed.
Yeah, exactly.
Our true belief is revealed.
Yeah. So I guess it all comes down to this developing the love of self, like when you develop humility and a willingness to just feel afraid and not take the action above that, which is to retaliate. That is where, you know what I mean? Like, you are loving yourself.
You've got such a great point, and it kind of connects the two subjects together. Would you mind bringing the camera down just a little, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Matt,
so
ask a quick question after the last one. Until you got to the next
just
one.
wait until I get through this, okay? Okay. So here's Matt. He's got the axe right.
Just that one, Danny.
He wants to harm someone. Okay. Oh, you can just tilt. You can just,
that's what I thought,
You know what you're doing, right?
Yeah, tilting. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Okay. All right, guys, you good?
Yeah, I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Right. And then God's sending me via the conscience these feelings into my heart, right, into my soul, saying, this is wrong, this is unloving, and God's feelings about this is wrong. It's not a punishment, but it's like you wanting to do this is not okay, not good at all. So let me just put this in silent, guys. Now, is God in that moment saying, give up your free will and do what I'm telling you?
No.
What God would like us to do in that moment is to be humble. And the definition of being humble is that you allow yourself, you have a desire and you have the will to feel all of your emotion. Whether it's painful, whether it's pleasurable, doesn't matter, that you experience, you allow yourself to experience all of your emotion all of the time. Now, the reason that Matt's in a state where he wants to go kill someone is because he hasn't been humble. You know how I was talking about, like, I was afraid and then I was like needy and then I was like frustrated and confused and then I was starting to get angry. You know, that the series of like developing a really nasty kind of aspiration inside of me. You know, all of those times I didn't let myself feel frustrated. I got frustrated and then I lived in my frustration and developed it until it became something that was more towards anger now. So God's like, you've gone on this whole process to get to this really dangerous situation now where you're going to do something pretty terrible to a person and to yourself as well, because it's going to harm the condition of your soul. What God wants you to do, and that's why God's speaking to you through the conscience, saying this is wrong, is God wants you to connect to the feeling of what you feel. So, not only are you allowed to do whatever you want to do, but if you love yourself, you feel everything. And you allow yourself to experience all of your emotion. And what that actually does that's actually a preventative thing from you doing harm to others and to yourself. So, let's say I'm in rage, right? So God's not saying, don't be enraged. God's not even saying, don't kill this person. God's saying, if you kill this person, it's the wrong thing to do, it's unloving. You know, it's harmful, it's hurtful. You are in rage. You are in rage right now. And if I loved myself, if I was humble, what I would go off and do is I'd go find some tree or something like that, maybe, whatever, and I'd let my, that looks like a tree, I'd let myself, I'd whack at the tree, hopefully it's a dead tree. I'd go wild on the tree, right? And I'd express and connect to my murderous rage. And that's what God wants me to do. God doesn't want me to give up my will until my will changes. God wants me to own my will. But owning your will doesn't mean that you have to take action on it. Does that make sense? So you can own your will and connect to your will and feel what your will is to do, what you want to do. You can feel how much you want to do it, but you don't actually have to do it. And the more sensitive you get to the conscience, the more you'll know whenever you feel that you want to do something and it's out of harmony with love, you'll feel from your conscience, oh no, this is not a good idea here. And what you'll do is you'll step back from doing it, but you won't step back from your will. Because you're allowed to do whatever you want, and you're allowed to want whatever you want, actually. So instead, what you're going to do to own it, you're going to feel it. You're going to go through the process of allowing yourself to be in a murderous rage instead of live in a murderous rage. Feel the murderous rage that you have inside of you. Who's felt murderous rage before in their life? Yeah, no, a couple of times I have. It's a very dark emotion, you know. Who allowed themselves to really feel it?
Well, lately.
Lately.
Before.
Before, no. Yeah.
I projected it out.
Right. So if you got to the point where you had murderous rage, but you didn't really go through and deal with it, it's still lurking around there inside of you. And if the right buttons are pushed, you will do it. If someone had a gun to your child's head, murderous rage. Right. So in that moment, when you're like, you touch my child, I'm going to destroy you, God wants you to feel that. And the law about humility is, you know, to feel that actually. Every law, yeah, go ahead.
Before earlier you said that if you truly love yourself,
Yeah.
you can, I'm paraphrasing it, make other people do what you want because you love yourself and it's for more or less for a good cause, I'd say.
No, you're allowed to.
You're allowed to.
But it doesn't mean that there's going to be... If you make other people do what you want, you will have a painful consequence because you are not respecting their free will. So for instance, you want to kill someone, it's out of harmony. If that person wants to live and you choose that you're going to kill them, you're breaking their free will. So by the time you understand the law of free will, and you feel that you're allowed to do whatever you want, when you truly understand that, the likelihood of you actually applying that in a way that kills a person is pretty remote. Because you will be so respectful of will that you respect other people's will as well. That's the cool thing. As you learn these lessons of love from God, it multiplies into all areas of your life. You know?
But I just think it's discounting basic human instincts. Protect yourself, protect your family.
No, I'm not.
Can I?
It's something that's taught, and it's something that's learned, and it's something that's programmed into us from our environment. To care and to nurture, yes, is natural, is genuine loving instinct. But to protect out of fear is not. Fear, when we're afraid, anytime that you're afraid, it's because you don't understand the truth in your heart. When you really understand the truth, you're not afraid. So if you're afraid, you don't love yourself yet, actually. Who lives in fear a lot of their life? It means you don't love yourself yet. So based on humility, this other thing, right? If you have fear, what would you do?
Be scared.
Sorry?
You said be scared.
Yeah, be scared. You feel it. You let yourself experience fear. And you wouldn't, you'd embrace it. Actually, you want to experience fear. Does that make sense? Who wants to experience their fear? That's awesome. Some of my fear I do, some of my fear I don't. Cool. That's how you become fearless. Who tried to shut down their fear in their life and look like they're fearless? Yeah, that's not the same as being fearless, as in you have no more fear inside of you. To become fearless, you've got to actually open up to the point of reviewing and expressing and experiencing your greatest terrors. All of the things that you're terrified of, and confront it through action, so loving action. Yes, Nikki?
Can I just add, like,
Yeah.
because I've heard all this stuff, I've experienced most of this stuff, and intellectually I understand stuff more in the sense, like, I understand you say it's humanistic and stuff like that. I mean, I've gone through it where you think it's humanistic, but like, it is generated by what you're saying, fear, like, you know, and like how Daniel, like how you said, like, oh yeah, it's okay if I harm them because I'm stopping them from harming someone else. It's like, well, actually now I've now done what I've now become them, okay, and then on top of that also, it's because of our fear. When we see someone facing death, it's because we fear that death is the end. You know what I mean? But actually, like in God's eyes, He's like, okay, well, they've just gone to the spirit world. He knows they continue. So, like in His eyes, it's just like, okay, well, you've ended them there. They continue. In our eyes and in our feelings and in our instincts, that person's gone for good. And that person, and
So the truth is they're not, right?
Yeah, the truth is they're not.
Yeah. So when you really know the truth, you won't be afraid. And actually, according to God, there is no situation that can ever possibly occur in which fear is actually valid. Yeah.
Can you explain more about if you have fear and you wanna get fearless? Let's say, like, pretty simple.
Yeah.
And you let the fear, like.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely explain that. And I'll bring it back to what we've been talking about. Sorry, I might get up again. Okay, cool. So, this is where like using the conscience comes in handy. Okay. So, who's afraid of telling the truth all the time? You're finding out how afraid have you been this week at certain moments when you decided to tell the truth?
No, I was like, I talked to Claire today, and I was just like, Claire, it's up to you, Claire. I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. But often we're afraid until we do it. And then we're like, oh, this wasn't as scary as I thought. No.
Yeah.
How long have you lived in fear of being honest with Claire? The whole time, right? The whole time. Okay, so let's say fear of truth, fear of being truthful. I'll use two examples. Fear of being truthful, fear of being violent. Okay? Cool. Woo! Right. So, your fear of being truthful, what you can do, just ask God and be like, is it loving to be truthful in every situation? You know? And like you feel from your conscience, yes. It's loving to be truthful in every situation. So what you do now is you let yourself be afraid, so you let yourself feel your fear. Does that make sense, Pete?
Yeah.
So you feel your fear, and you take action. So you feel it, and you act on it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now,
You
let's.
you feel and you let's say
So if it's a loving thing that you're afraid of.
yeah. Let's say I had the fear meeting new people.
Yep.
And like, alright, maybe they're gonna reject me, you know.
Yep.
And that I know it comes from deep inside because
Yep.
when I was in school, there was a time I got bullied.
Yeah.
So and you're talking about the action part is actually.
So what did you do, failure, in that situation? Because what you're describing is failure in the past.
Yeah. So like being afraid of.
Yeah, being afraid of being with people and being open with people and stuff.
So what action did I take?
Yeah, what action did you take? Because you felt your fear, right? To some extent.
Well, I was like, well, to some extent, but like, I guess the first thing is to, recognize that there is an issue. Like, wow, I'm avoiding a lot of situations here just because I do not want to be open with people or even.
Well, because I want to avoid my fear.
I want to avoid my fear of whatever's going to come up if I'm around people. So I sat in that for a bit, going, I know there's an issue here, but I still don't want to. I hate people, I'm not going to hang around them. So I had to kind of allow myself to stew and get to the point where I felt through all of that, to the point where now I'm starting to desire, okay, I want to work on it. I want to work on this issue, and then as I started desiring that a lot more, then I took action. All right, so I'm feeling more of a desire now to be around people. So I took action on that. So I took opportunities when they came to me to be around people.
Yeah, like this, right?
Yeah, like this.
Yeah, you said, yes, let's do it at your place.
Yeah, I said, yeah, cool, let's have it here. And, whenever I talk to people now, I'm more giving of myself or willing to give myself, challenge that. And when I,
Who's afraid of other people's response to who they are? A lot. Chickens everything. Right? A lot of us are very afraid of other people's response. Right? So that, fear of being yourself or fear of being truthful, for instance, you're afraid of actually doing something loving. So yes, you do feel it, and the more that you feel it over time, eventually you'll start to get some traction there, and you feel like, oh, I can take action now. So then you take action to challenge the truth of, is the fear true or not? So you take action, and then you feel it. And whatever happens, you feel that as well. Now, in contrast to that, fear of being violent. Who has a fear of their own violence?
You mean that we are violent with
Of our own violence, yes. Of fear of being violent and what might happen if I'm violent, and what I could do to someone if I'm violent. Who's afraid of that? Who's had that fear? Some of us have, some of us haven't, right? Now, just because you're afraid of that doesn't mean go out and challenge the fear by getting in a fight and punching someone up. And some people do that, right? They're like, oh, I'm afraid of this. And then they go put themselves in this terribly unloving situation to challenge their fear, but they're not really engaging their emotional self really in it. They're still avoiding their feelings. So when it's something that my will is to be violent, but I'm afraid of it, what you do is you just feel it. So when your will is to do something that you feel like, oh, it doesn't feel good, but I want it anyway. Feel how much you want it. If you love yourself, that's what you will do. Every time that you have an unloving desire or your will is in an unloving direction, you will not take action to make that happen. You will feel it. Yes?
Does that include being violent to yourself?
Yes. Absolutely it does. Yeah, so who feels like being violent to themselves sometimes? I remember one time I smacked my daughter, and then like I turned around and like punched myself in the head like 10 times after I did it. Just, you know, that was me avoiding the truth of what I'd just done, avoiding having to feel that I've just done something unloving to another person. You know? And so then I just attacked myself as a result. That's a classic example of someone using, it was a messy time, I tell you. That's an example of someone using their will in like out of harmony with love and refusing to feel it. So the loving thing for me to go and do would have been to actually, number one, not have struck my child for any reason, anyway. And then number two, if that had already happened before I came to myself, to feel whatever I am feeling and take personal responsibility for my emotion in that moment and be humbled, which is to experience all this terrible self-hatred that I have, right? It's terrible, like for you to like at full force punch yourself in the head, like you obviously have a lot of terrible feelings of hatred and rage towards yourself, right? It's a good example about how much I've changed in terms of how much I love myself now. I literally like punch myself in the head a bunch of times. It's terrible. Who's done some pretty nasty shit to themselves? Yep. Sexually as well, I've done some terrible things to myself. You know? So being humble is a protective measure that God has built into his laws. The laws about humility. You know? So when you have this thing come up inside of you and it's real dark, your will is to do something pretty dark right in this moment. Or even just project hatred at yourself or someone else, right? You know, to obey the law, and this is what I'm talking about, the laws are all protective and beneficial in nature. You obey the law of humility and you just feel it. And when you feel it, you work through the layers until you get to the dirty little nugget that started the whole problem in the first place. So the law of humility isn't just to prevent you from doing horrible things. The law of humility exists so that you eventually get to the cause of whatever's causing this violent want that you have inside of you. You feel through that, you finally get to this, you let go of that. Because you were humble and because you obeyed this law of humility, you know, you didn't tell yourself though, I'm not allowed to do it. So you didn't break the law of free will, you were, I'm allowed to be violent. But I'm going to also obey the law of humility now. The laws around humility, and I'm going to experience how much I want to do it. But because there's this sense in me, and I've got this, it might be from the love that you have inside of you, it may be from the conscience saying, this is not a good idea. You go, okay, something's telling me it's not a good idea. I'm going to feel it instead. Yeah. And the process is designed so this gets popped out of you. Just on an aside, I just want to share one of the most beautiful things that God's designed in this process. It's this, particularly if it's something that's happened to you consistently over, who experienced sustained violence in their childhood? Many times in their childhood.
You mean like physical abuse?
Yeah, physical abuse. Who's experienced like sustained physical abuse in their childhood? You witnessed it, right? Yeah. Not the same as receiving it, but you know, it's a cousin of it. You know? So this fear, well not fear, this grief that you have inside of you, the sadness that you have inside of you, the trauma of it. When you get through all of those layers and you get to this point, as long as you are willing to feel all of that pain, You know what God does? God takes it out of you. As long as you are willing to feel all of that, you are ready to learn the lesson in love that it's connected to, and God draws that pain out of your soul. If you don't engage a relationship with God, you'll never experience that benefit of a relationship with God. And that's like that causal emotion inside of you. You know, God's just waiting for your willingness to help remove it from your soul so you can be happy. And I experienced this recently when I went through and released some trauma about being raped by my dad. I feel like God helped. And to the degree which you're willing to feel this causal emotion, He'll remove it from your soul if you ask.
So by that, like to the degree, does that mean if you only want to feel a little bit of it, it'll remove just that little bit that you felt? Like, what do you mean to the degree?
To the degree of how much of this you're willing to feel.
Yeah.
God,
so he'll
God
just
will
remove.
I'm only talking about this like nugget at the bottom, the actual causing emotion.
But like, if you're only willing to feel a bit of it, is that all that they'll remove? And then So just
Yeah. But like, there are many circumstances where a person just has to go through it and feel it all.
Yeah.
So they don't develop a willingness. Or even if they do develop a willingness, they don't ask for God's assistance in the process. In terms of all of the pain. So there's not just this pain, there's lots of other pain, as we went through last week, right?
Yeah.
And most of the pain is from things that we do to ourselves and that we do to others a lot of the time. So for instance, Nero, right? Emperor Nero, I talked about him last week, I think, did I? Did I talk about Emperor Nero?
I think you posted in the
posted
chat.
it.
Right, okay, cool. So I posted about Nero, right? So Nero was a Roman emperor.
Yeah.
He was a very unloving person. He felt that he was totally superior. And his environment had constantly reinforced to him that he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, and it didn't matter whether it was loving or not. You know? So he didn't care whether it was loving or not. He would take action whether it was evil or whether it was good, and most of the time what he wanted to do is evil, right? So he racked up a whole bunch of like penalty, not as a punishment, but like as a lesson that needs to be learned in love, and how hugely he like practiced doing all these terrible things in life. So after he passed into the spirit world, he spent 2,000 years suffering through all of the pain. You know, and a lot of the time he wasn't willing. So it was a very slow, drawn out, terrible process of suffering that he went through. And then at a certain point, and through having a relationship with his soulmate, Nero got to a point where he decided to, and you can call it repentance and remorse, and like he was sorry, genuinely sorry for what he'd done, and he was willing to feel the pain. And then God could remove the rest of the pain in different amounts at different times as he went through the rest of that process. Does that make sense?
Oh, so it's not all like the causal pain. Like I know like the stuff on top of it that will get taken away as you come to it, but like the causal pain doesn't get removed.
It can be if you're willing to experience all of it, then it will. Yeah. Yes, Carl.
Do we want to get rid of all our pain?
No. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any.
Yeah.
We want to hang on to it.
So how do you know what we're trying to get rid of and what we're trying to hold on to?
If something's painful inside of you, it's something to get rid of. And the reason that you have pain is because you believe something that's not true, and you believe something and have a feeling inside of you that isn't loving.
And what do we want to keep on to? What pain?
Genuine pleasure.
No, but I'm saying pain-wise.
What do you want to keep on to?
Yeah, I was saying, do we want to get rid of all our pain?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
We want to learn the lesson that the pain's trying to teach us. And once we learn the lesson, then there's no reason to have the pain. So maybe a better thing to say is I want to learn all the lessons that the pain is trying to teach me. And from then I won't need it. It won't be a requirement for me to grow anymore. Imagine that, being able to grow without having pain involved.
Which is the way God intended it
Yeah.
originally. I mean, yeah, I just want to add, like, the lessons that we're learning right now isn't what was intended. Like,
It's the remedial program.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's basically what we created.
Yeah.
So God's saying, you got to take responsibility for it. Like, God had intentions for a very loving world for us to be born into without any pain and suffering.
Yeah, but the way that God designed all of his laws, her laws, is that if we choose to move in an unloving direction, the laws also work on our unloving intentions. You know, they're perfect both ways, which is pretty amazing. So we've covered a little bit tonight, like we've talked about, we've talked about our will, and that we have free will, and there is laws about free will, and that we are allowed to do anything that we want. And if we feel that we're not, we're in error. And we've been programmed to, now, depending on the nature of a human being, what happens a lot of the time is they'll either fall into absolute obedience and obeyance of the environment rules that were pushed upon them, or if they have a slightly different type of nature, they'll do the opposite and rebel against every single one of them as much as they possibly can. Do we have any people like that a little bit in this room who are much more on the rebellious side of things? Yeah. If you just want to rebel, and it's not necessarily whether it's about what's loving or not, you still have the same problem, in that you're warped about the usage of your will. And you're angry that your will's like subverted, and you feel like you're going to show the world now that I do whatever I want. Yeah. That's not the same as, that's still avoiding the pain that your will was shut down, that your will was trampled upon. You know, you still have to go through the pain of it. So pain can cause us to kind of go in two directions, either like come into harmony with it, or like come into harmony with being in line with what being forced upon us, or we're trying to rebel against it. But both of those are a way to actually avoid that pain exists. So we covered a little bit about free will, hey? I know this is kind of a bit of a dense sort of topic to get through. Does everyone have a little bit of a sense of what I'm talking about? Yeah, cool. And then we talked a little bit about humility, right? Yes. All right. So Riley, from what we talked about, what is humility as far as you understand it?
Being able to just feel everything, own and embrace the fear of being violent, and like how you truly feel about things.
Yeah.
But then not acting on it.
Yeah.
Not acting on the unloving parts and acting on the truthful, loving parts.
Bingo. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit more about humility, and then we'll call it a night. Okay, just a little mini story. So today I came over and I was going to help Thalia with do a self-tape, right? And Thalia told me about something. She told me about in Italy, was it? Switzerland? Where was it? The babies.
Argentina.
In Argentina, they have this thing that if a baby survives an abortion, and then it's born and it's still alive, that they just leave it there. That doctors and nurses are required, to leave it. And then, over a period of hours, however many hours it takes, and it can be like 8 hours or something like that, it's just there, and then eventually it dies. It's a pretty terrible indictment on humankind to feel that that's in any way remotely okay to do. Now, Thalia, what did I do when you told me?
You cried.
Just started crying like a little kid, pretty much, right? What did you do when you found out? When you found out about it?
Yeah, I cried.
Just cried straight away, right? Yeah. So, humility is as soon as you feel anything, you feel it. You don't hold back. So who suppresses their emotions depending on which environment they're in? at the time. If you love yourself, you never do that. Who's perfectly willing to cry in front of complete strangers? I am!
45 minutes in the train, guys. People were looking at me. And I was like, I didn't do it. I didn't make him cry.
I
Okay?
was sobbing my heart out, hey? Yeah, like 45 minutes on this train.
45 minutes straight.
I didn't
Straight.
stop. Yeah. So, if you love yourself, who's let people shut them down emotionally before? When they've felt something and then someone come along and said, don't feel that.
Oh, yeah.
All our lives.
Sometimes they
All
like
our
when
lives.
they do it. You know, they go, oh, no, as in, they make it look like it's a loving thing. Like, oh, don't cry, my child. It's okay.
Very good,
it's okay.
Nikki. Very good.
That's
So
what I mean.
who's been soothed out of an emotion before? Who feels like when your baby's crying, you pick it up and you reassure it and you soothe it? You like that, right?
Yeah.
A loving parent would never do that to a child.
I think that's where we all got it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely we did. So what happens, we got taught that was love, that when I'm upset and when I'm terrified, mummy's going to come along and make me feel better. Or mummy's going to come and just... yeah, you're connecting to it, right? Yeah. Like, see now, even like Alana's getting pretty good at this, just allowing herself to be emotional wherever she is, which is pretty beautiful to see. Yeah, it takes a lot of humility, a lot of courage to do that. Yeah. So we have this thing, and so and as right as the parent's doing this unloving thing, which is to take away our humility and to shut our humility down and to shut us down emotionally, they're saying to us, "Oh, sweetheart, I love you. I love you," and they're projecting. You know, really the projection's more like the truthful projection's like, "Don't cry, I don't like how this made me feel." Shh. Right? That's really what's going on, you know, underneath. It's not so nice. It just appears nice on the surface. So then what happens for the rest of our life, as soon as we get into a panic, we just need someone to make us feel better. As soon as we're afraid, we're like, desperately need reassurance. Right? Me too. Got needed for reassurance, like from you guys before we started tonight, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to just, I need to feel this, right?
So,
Yeah.
What should you do if you've got like a crying baby or something? Like,
Let the baby cry.
Until when?
Let the baby cry.
Okay.
So,
What if it's like hungry or something?
well, yeah, you can feed it. You can feed it, right? Yeah, you can absolutely feed it. And if you're sensitive emotionally, you will feel that the baby is hungry, or you will feel that the baby's weed itself and it's uncomfortable. You know, it's crying. As soon as it's not happy, it's going to cry.
Yeah.
But for you to stop it from crying, is unloving.
So like.
But if your baby's like just crying and crying and crying, for instance, like the reason that it is because your baby's like a sponge, completely open wide, total sponge, and it's just going to suck in all the emotions of its environment. When your baby's really like wailing and stuff, or like experiencing some terrible pain, it's from you. So the loving thing to do is for you to feel what you're avoiding, and you've got the perfect trigger in your arms right at that very moment.
Yeah.
So when a person chooses to smack a child for any reason, it's to shut down their own emotion that the baby is triggering in them. The baby's saying, you are angry. You are angry. You know, through its behaviour, it's getting into a rage, and you're like, you're not allowed to be angry. Come on, you've got to be a good boy now. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. Okay, it's wrong. Like, you're not allowed to chuck a wobbly. You're not allowed to destroy the store. You're not allowed to do any of those things, right? Shh, stop it, right? You know, but the child's just reflecting what the adult feels, what the parent feels inside of itself. Like, I'm sorry, I want to be allowed to do what I want. Or like, I am angry, you know? So what often happens is when the child's in pain, as soon as the parent connects to the emotion they're avoiding, the kid gets up, walks off, does whatever it wants to do.
Yeah. So if you're like.
I've seen this happen not a million times, I've seen it happen Probably maybe more than 100 times. I don't know.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
lot.
yeah. But like,
Yep.
because like we were soothed as kids
Yes.
or whatever, and now we like seek other people for reassurance and stuff.
Yes.
It's like, how do you comfort someone that's like feeling emotions without like shutting, like without,
Have you seen me try and comfort you?
no. So you don't comfort them at all? I'm fine. Okay.
Doesn't mean you don't love them.
Yeah.
So you think love and comfort is the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not.
Okay, so like how would you lovingly handle someone you care about being like emotional?
When you love a person, you don't need to worry about how you just do. You'd be truthful with them. You'd have compassion for them. You know, you'd have empathy for what they're going through. You want to understand them more. You want to give them support so they can grow in love. And you want to help expose the error that's inside of them.
Are you like allowed to hug them or something? No?
It depends on your motivation. And you'll sense like, there's plenty of times where I want to hug a person, but I feel that in that moment, if I hugged them, they would take that as, oh, I can relax now because I'm getting some kind of comfort. So I avoid, like, you know, and like, for instance, Kate's the perfect example. Kate's so needy for hugs.
Me too. I'm the same.
Yeah, you're needy for hugs as well, right? Like, and like when Kate's needy for hugs, if I give Kate a hug, I'm shutting down her emotion. Because her emotion is, I just want, you know? So it depends on what's going on inside of them and what's going on inside of me. We've got to be honest with ourselves. Yeah. So, every single place you go, completely your emotional self. You cry wherever you are, or when you feel sad, you just cry. When you're angry, you let yourself go bright red and you express your anger. Bash whatever you like, right?
I do another example of Matt doing that with me. We're going down the street and then we're going heading to his house. He goes, "Excuse me 1 second, Nikki," and he grabs this like elastic thing from the ground and he just goes up to a bin and just like whack it. And this is before I knew any of this stuff, and I'm looking at him going,
yeah.
We're in an alleyway and there's like a whole group coming past him and they go past it, they're watching him, he's just going, didn't even care that they were watching him, but I'm like,
No, I didn't care. No, I
they look at me going, I was like,
yeah. I found that someone had gone through my bin and like I had like all this paperwork that I'd put into my bin because they were looking for, I don't know, whatever, some random thing. They were like, they'd gone through a bunch of people's bins. But the fact that he left all of my personal details scattered on the floor and he didn't put it back in the bin, that triggered me in that moment, and I felt like my privacy had been violated, that I hadn't been respected. And my addiction is, you should respect me. You know? And so I was angry. I could have chased the guy down and fucking let him have it, right?
But was it wrong that you wanted respect in that sense? It was wrong.
Yes. To want respect from others is unloving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To give respect to others is a loving thing, but to want respect, to demand respect from others is very unloving. Because if you respect their will, you're not going to want
whatever. It is what it is. Yeah.
Because whether they respect you or not, you still love yourself. And that's the cool thing. The more that you love yourself, you stop wanting things from people, and you start wanting to give things to people.
What about this?
Yeah.
What about discipline people?
Sorry?
What about discipline somebody?
Disciplining in person?
Yeah, like, you know, there was like in I was jogging a couple of days ago, and a man went with his kid, and they were driving a drone. The kid was driving a drone, and the kid couldn't handle it, so the drone just flew very close next to me, and the guy didn't say anything. And in this moment I was really like, fuck, he doesn't care.
That's right.
This one got shot.
This person, the dad didn't care about your safety, did he?
No, he was just, and the boy was, and you know, the thing was right next to me, and I was shouting and saying, hey, you know, I was telling him very clear and loudly, hey.
Oh, did you shouted at him?
I mean, I was, so.
So if you, let me explain something to you.
Yeah.
If you loved yourself, Pete, when you did that, when that happened to you and you got emotionally affected by it, if you loved yourself, you would have let yourself feel how terrified you were in that moment.
Yeah.
Because you got angry to avoid some fear. So if you were humble and you loved yourself, you would have let yourself experience your fear. And you probably would have just let yourself shake and be like, I could have died, it's so scary, I don't even happen. Like, and just let yourself just go with that. And then eventually you would have ended up on the ground bawling your eyes out about feeling like you're never safe or something.
So you're saying disciplining this guy.
This is the same example. So you got angry and you felt like you wanted to defend yourself, right?
I just want to let you know that next time you should say something. It's not okay. You cannot just. I mean, it's.
He can just because he did.
Yeah,
he can. He can do it. He's allowed to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, of course.
No, you don't agree.
But no, I mean, of course he can do everything. But
no, you say that, but you don't agree.
Yeah,
because you feel like he does.
No,
the feeling coming.
My feeling is like
different from the words.
Disciplining this guy. I don't care how old he is. I don't.
Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So when you get into that state, if you love to do that to a person isn't humble, because when you do that, you avoid the actual emotion. You're just putting the emotion onto someone else.
What about if I would just? Okay, calm down. Excuse me, sir. Next time, please.
Yeah.
You know.
That's not humble. That's not humble. You're just suppressing your anger.
Yeah.
You are angry.
Yes.
The answer is to feel how angry you are in that moment. If you suddenly get angry, you feel how angry you are. And the more you feel the anger, then you start to realize, oh my God, I'm so terrified. And then you feel the fear. So that's why you want to now tell this person off and say what they should be doing and stuff in this angry sort of demanding, disciplining kind of way, right? That's this unloving feeling that you have inside of you. So the answer is, don't take action, feel it. Feel how much you want to take action, but when it's an unloving thing that you want to do to a person, don't. Now you're going to disagree with God, and that's why it's great that there's a conscience, because you'll be like, no, the right thing is to fucking tell this person off, and the conscience will be like, no, you're angry, you know, like you want to harm this person.
But nothing will change. I mean,
Sorry? They don't have to change.
I can also make a difference in my circumstance when I'm not, you know, like normal talk with this person. Next time you maybe take more care about it. It will have a positive impact.
No, you can give feedback to a person when you have love in your heart, and the love isn't disturbed by the event that takes place. You'd be like, hi there, you know, like you actually have love, and you'd be like, oh look, because you realise, oh, you don't understand this thing about love yet. That when you're loving, you are aware of other people in your environment, and you're aware of the effect that you have on them, and you'll do what you can to prevent having a painful effect on other people. But you actually go over and talk to that person because you love them.
Not because you're angry.
Yeah.
Not because you're angry, not because you're afraid, not because they need to be told a lesson.
So you mean I'm allowed to speak to this person after I went through this emotion, and I'm like emotionally healed in this part.
Yeah.
Once you're no longer in a state of anger.
Yeah.
And you're
or even
actually
a state
just
of fear.
Yeah, a state of fear, and you just gone, allowed yourself to grieve whatever it was, and you're not going there to attack them or like punish them or discipline them, but you want to just say out of love for that person and yourself, hey, you know, like that was actually quite dangerous what happened just then.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Like I have the same issue. Like I have people attacking me randomly out on the street all the time, and my initial reaction is to basically destroy them and murder every single other human on the planet as well at the same time. So I've had the same like kind of process that I've had to go through to get to the point now of just like not retaliating, just feeling how fucking terrified I am when someone attacks me, you know, like but I have attacked people back.
Yeah. So violent times. So the way of humility.
That's pain, like. Yeah.
The way of humility, guys, is a way of peace.
Sorry.
Yes.
Is there anyone else that wants that question before so when you say... Oh, did you want to say about? Oh. No. Okay. So when someone mistreats you, right?
Yes.
whatever, mistreat me, I love myself. But when is it a when does it get to a point where it's like, don't mistreat me because I love myself. I demand you to stop mistreating me.
If you feel that you demand that someone stop mistreating you, you don't love yourself.
Not demand. You get what I'm saying though?
No, yes, I do. And what I'm saying is what you feel about that's in error. It's unloving.
Then how's the right way to go about feeling
away.
I don't want to be mistreated? How do you go about that?
Well, once you're not afraid of being mistreated and you grieve for being mistreated in the past.
Right.
When someone tries to mistreat you, you'd be like, oh, trying to mistreat me. Like I don't even know why necessarily,
Right.
but like, you know, I don't deserve this, you know, and you must be pretty angry right now.
Correct.
And then you'd be like, look, and you give them an opportunity, and like with a lot of you guys, you'll notice that when you've treated me unloving in the past, I've given you an opportunity, right, to change, and like I've addressed it in certain points. A lot of you guys I haven't, particularly when I've been like teaching you, but like for those of you that I have a closer relationship with, I've addressed it and given you an opportunity to change, and often I give people a lot of opportunities to change, and then eventually I can see they have no will or desire or openness to any of this truth. They're not interested in it at all. They just want to keep doing what they're doing.
Right.
And so when it comes to that, even if it's my best friend, even if it's my soulmate, even if it's my mum or dad, I walk away. Not forever. Not forever. Don't close the door on love. I still love them, but I'm not going to be in their presence anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I vote with my feet and I leave, but I don't stay and make them change.
Yeah.
God's not trying to do that either. That's the great thing.
So, yeah.
We can always compare what we do and what we believe and what we feel with what's going on with what God's doing, and it's a clear indication of how loving we are to ourselves and to others. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question. So if you like get into a fight with some, okay, I was gonna say nigga, but like, no, you get into a fight with someone, but like, you know the right thing to do is to walk away, and you walk away, and you get bashed anyways. Is that their free will of saying that's your lesson learned? Like,
well, they might think they're trying to teach you a lesson, but they're not.
okay.
Now the fact that you walked away and you still got attacked is an indicator that you feel so deserving of violence and attack that even when you're not the instigator and the aggressor, you'll still cop violence. And you feel like you deserve that actually. So life is trying to remind you, God's laws are trying to remind you that that's how bad you feel about yourself, that even when you're not even involved in a conflict, that you still feel like you must deserve violence.
So in a way, that's like my lesson still needing to be learned.
Exactly. And if you allow the pain that you go through when you get attacked by this person to take you deep into what you're avoiding, and you let this experience really trigger you and you work through it, if you really work through it and you get to that dirty little nugget at the bottom, you let go of that. I say dirty little nugget, but it's actually a broken child. You know? And that little broken child really is allowed, guys, sorry, that broken child inside of you is not allowed to, is finally allowed to let go of this pain. Then the likelihood of you ever attracting something like that again, Hilton's going to be. If you ever do, it'll be to help someone else. One thing we don't need to do is try and understand our abuser.
Yeah.
Ever. It is not your job to understand why a person has been unloving to you from their perspective. It is not your job. Give it up. So for you to feel like, oh, eventually, like, I'll go through enough of these and they'll see something human inside of me that's going to touch them and make them want to change. Your purpose on this planet is not to be someone's whipping boy. You're not meant to be someone's practice run, Hilton.
I understand.
There was no loving purpose for what happened to you. The lesson was there to be learned the very first time that your father felt to hit you. And if he had felt how much he wanted to hit you and be in control of you in that moment when you were just a baby, the lesson could have been learned the very first time. and you chose not to. And now as a result of that, you still got a lot of trauma inside of you about this.
Yeah.
And you feel so worthless about it, you know, you feel like you just deserved all of it still. So God really wants to help you with this process of actually feeling how terrible that really was. And the same goes for a lot of you, like everyone, and particularly a lot of you guys who've been pretty seriously abused, physically, emotionally, sexually, you know. There's a legacy of trauma that exists in almost every person on the planet, which is pretty severe, you know, to different degrees. Loving thing to do, the loving thing for ourselves is to feel it. And let's say Chandra does something, this will be the last thing, let's say Chandra does something to me, and it's a really horrible thing, and then I feel everything as a result of what Chandra's done to me, and I let go of whatever's underneath and stuff like that. What have I effectively done in terms of how I feel towards Chandra now, and about what Chandra's done to me?
Forgiveness.
I've forgiven that person. Okay? So often we feel, if I forgive you, I'm not loving myself. I'm putting you above me. Because you should be sorry, and why should I have to forgive you anyway? If I forgive you, it makes me weak. If you truly forgive someone in your heart, and you really release all the pain that that person's caused you, you actually love yourself. Because you've set yourself free. Cool. Alright guys, we'll probably finish up. Is there any other questions that are just busting to be asked?
Oh, that's right.
No, go ahead.
We spoke about the law of humility. It's called the law of humility.
Laws involving humility? Yeah,
and law of free will.
Yep, law of free will.
We will be speaking about the law of attraction and law of desire next week.
Yep.
As per your plan.
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk about those things. So there's quite a lot to discuss with each of these issues, you know? And like, over time, what's going to happen, guys, is you start to develop a sense of how, because there's not just like one law that exists all by itself. Can you guys see how the law of, like the laws involving free will and then the laws involving humility fit together and they work together in terms of you're allowed to do whatever you want, but when you want to do something that's unloving, then you engage the laws of humility, right? And they serve you in a positive way. Which is pretty cool.